Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Cleave podcast. This is Joe on the front, and I'm here with another mini episode with it being Holy Week. And today's Here's the Lesson is on Holy Tuesday. So let's jump into it. Yesterday on Holy Monday, we talked about Jesus cleansing the temple. He was gentle with the broken, but he was not gentle with what exploited the sacred. Today, Holy Tuesday, gives us another sobering lesson, because on this day, Jesus speaks directly to hypocrisy. And I want to say this carefully because it matters deeply for so many people that are listening. Jesus was not hardest on weakness. He was not hardest on the confused, the grieving, the sinner, the struggler, the person trying to figure out how to follow God in the middle of real life. He was hardest on what looked holy, but quietly harmed people. That is the weight of Holy Tuesday. On this day, Christ confronts the religious leaders publicly. He speaks with startling clarity about those who presented one image outwardly while producing something very differently inwardly. He says they bind heavy burdens and grievous to be borne and lay them on men's shoulders, but they themselves will not move them with one of their fingers. That is such a piercing image. They were creating burdens they did not carry, demanding loyalty they did not reciprocate, demanding obedience without self-examination, demanding honor without accountability, demanding peace without truth. And if you've ever lived inside a family system, a church culture, or relationship dynamic where the language sounded spiritual, but the fruit felt heavy, you know exactly what that feels like. Because sometimes the most confusing relationships are not the openly hostile ones. They're the ones wrapped in religious language. Language like love, forgiveness, honor, unity, obedience, submission, and peace. They're all beautiful words. They're all sacred words. And yet sometimes those words get used in ways that quietly protect what is unhealthy. Sometimes they are used to shut down truth. Sometimes they are used to avoid accountability. Sometimes they are used to keep the system intact. And Jesus does something profoundly clarifying on Holy Tuesday. He never confuses appearance with fruit. He does not ask, how spiritual do they sound? He asks, in effect, what is the fruit? What is this producing in the lives of the people around them? Because the fruit always tells the truth. This is why Jesus said, "By their fruits ye shall know them." That line is so important because many people have spent years evaluating relationships by language instead of fruit. They sound spiritual, they quote scripture, they talk about honor and forgiveness, they invoke family, they talk about what Christ would want. But the real question is, what does their presence produce? Does it produce peace or pressure? Does it produce freedom or fear? Does it produce clarity or confusion? Does it move you closer to God or deeper into guilt, self-doubt, and emotional exhaustion? Because looking holy and being holy are not the same thing. That is Holy Tuesday. And this is especially important for people navigating painful family systems. Sometimes the system sounds incredibly spiritual. Sometimes the language is impeccable. Sometimes the values sound noble, but the actual fruit is control, fear, pressure, silence. And when you finally begin to name what is happening, the system often responds not with reflection, but with coordination. My wife Ashley and I write about this in chapter 3 of our new book, Leave Then Cleave. We call it When the System Closes Ranks. Because when systems feel threatened, they do not always react with open conflict. Sometimes the response is quieter, more unified, more decisive. It can even look spiritual. It can sound like unity. But sometimes that unity is not health. Sometimes it is simply protection mode. And that is why Holy Tuesday matters so much. Jesus was not fooled by polished appearances. He saw fruit. He saw burden. He saw fear. He saw the weight people were being forced to carry. And what did he do? He named it. That is pastoral. That is loving. And that is ultimately Christ-like. Some of you have spent years wondering if you are overreacting because the language around you sounds so holy. But maybe the better question is not, what are they saying? Maybe it is, what is this producing in my life? If the fruit is fear, or confusion, or shame, or if the fruit is in relentless pressure to comply, then it is worth paying attention, because Jesus never taught us to ignore fruit in favor of appearances. Holy Tuesday invites us to move from surface to substance, from image to fruit, from language to reality, from appearance to truth. And that is the lesson today on this Holy Tuesday. If today's lesson stirred something in you and you're trying to make sense of what faithfulness, truth, and healthy boundaries actually look like in real life, that is a big part of why Ashley and I wrote Leave Then Cleave. We wrote it for people who love God deeply but are carrying real confusion inside family dynamics, spiritual pressure, guilt, and systems that look holy on the outside but quietly create fear, burden, and silence. If that feels familiar, how about starting with the first chapter? We give it to you for free. You'll find the link right in the show notes, or you can head on over to our website, leavethencleave.com/free-chapter. And if you'd like to keep going, the full book, audiobook, and additional resources are all available there as well. Thanks, everybody. Hope you have a great day.